Ta-da! This is a revolution. It may look almost like a normal bow, but it is not. What does revolution mean? It is a shift in how we look at bows, how bows work, and how they are made. It does look a little bit like some other carbon fiber bows you may have seen before, but I'll show you and I explain a lot of what's going on here, which explains why it is so different and why it has to be. Our company is known for 24 years now for making the Arcus bows. You know what? Let me just grab one. So, these babies here. Bows, high-end, kind of expensive, I admit that. Beautiful made, really everything up to perfection. Made for professional players in mind, and quite successful, as I may say. But there were some issues, and the key issue with making the Arcus bows is fundamentally cost and the limited number that we can produce, because it is so time consuming. Takes very expensive materials, of course, and highly skilled workmanship. And training bow makers to make Arcus bows is also a very time consuming process. It takes years. Really, it is no comparison to making wood bows, though this may sound a little weird, but really making an Arcus bow is incredibly difficult. And it limits the numbers that we can make. And now we have the situation that since 2006, 2007, Pernambuco was declared an endangered species and its harvesting was forbidden. And was very good cause. It's a bit of a sad story that isn't often told, but 95% of its original habitat was already lost. So 95% lost and only 5% remaining. And much of that is in small patches. So the population of Pernambuco is due to the genetic simplicity now in really much larger or much more danger than it looks. So anyways, Pernambuco was put on the CITES listing of endangered species, and only last year in November the rules were reworked and the documentation was tightened, with the result that for almost a year now, no Pernambuco is coming out of Brazil. And looking back in 2007, I understood that. I imagined that at some point the supply of Pernambuco will run out. And then we have a problem not only with the quality of bows, which is why we initially started making Arcus bows, but we have a problem that musicians around the world will need good bows to play with, and also in a medium price range and much bigger numbers than we can produce with the Arcus bows. So that was a real concern. I turned that over and over, and for a good while I didn't find a solution, because looking at the carbon fiber bows out there, you know, some of them I cut up and try to understand why they sound so, let's say, not fully satisfying. and while their playing characteristics were not always quite ideal, to put it mildly. So the solution that our competitors were offering, mostly made in China, but some also made in the US, very few made in Europe, did not convince me that I could leave it to them to come up with a good solution for the middle of the market bows from violin to double bass. So, what is exactly the problem that these guys have? Okay, we've discussed the wood problem, and you probably also know from my other videos that I consider wooden bows as too weak and too heavy, but that's something for another video. And I'm not going deep into that. But we have those Chinese-made bows at, you know, very low prices, and then something a little better from Western countries, but none of them good enough for musicians to really love playing them, to enjoy playing them. And when I measured, you know, I got me some of these bows. Some I traded in when people bought an Arcus bow, and some I just purchased to have a look at them. And I measured them up very carefully, cut them up, analyzed them, and I found them only the design of these sticks, so weight distribution, the balance, the center of gravity, the elasticity, the camber, the curve. None of what I was analyzing looked like these people know what they're doing, as if they don't really fully understand the physics of the bow, which I have to say is quite common in this industry. Me coming from the bicycle industry, it's still a thing that absolutely fascinates me. I mean, how can you design or make products without understanding them? But in this business, it seems quite normal. Something I don't like to do at all. So, okay, so what I did is I analyzed all that existing, and I knew from the Arcus bows fundamentally what we need. We need low damping, which is a function of the resin content in a carbon composite. Put simply, the less resin we have and the more carbon fiber, the lower is the damping and the nicer is the sound. So, rule of thumb, works pretty nice. So in an Arcus bow, we have a resin content that's only like 25%, and the damping is around 0.2%. And Pernambuco, the damping is 0.5, and in the mid to low end carbon fiber bows, we've measured damping of around 1% or even more, even 2%. So that's the reason why all these bows sound kind of dull, uninspiring. Can be warm, the sound can be nice initially, but when you play more and when you work out your pieces, then the sound starts to become boring and you're missing the fun and you're missing inspiration in your playing. And that's the worst thing that can happen to a musician. So we need a bow that gives you fun, but also inspiration. Enjoy playing it. So what can we do? The Arcus was too expensive and the other bows were just not good enough. So we needed a new solution, a new technology. And it wasn't readily available. But here's an idea that I had. Okay, first let's look at this flimsy stuff that we use to make our Arcus bows. You know, this is called a prepreg. This is ultra thin stuff. This is actually including a foil You know, the carbon fiber is even less than half that. Very delicate stuff. That's what's so easy, so difficult to work with. And it has the resin already included, very evenly spread out, which is one reason why we can make these bows so thin and so light. But terrible to handle. Anyways, so here was a very different idea. We could use 3D woven like tubes of carbon fiber. You see these strands of carbon fiber. We could make a stick out of these and then inject the resin. And this would make sense if we achieve a resin content of not above 40%. So in the lower end carbon fiber bows, the resin content is like 60%, which is bad. Arcus was 25. So my calculations were, if we get it 40%, we'll have about the same damping as in high quality Pernambuco. All right, and then we started a process of research and development. How can we get this into a stick? Into this. And it turned out to be a process. It took us like, I don't know, until today. Well, it's now 2023, so we started in 2008, and now we're getting into significant production. So it's been initial development and then pre-production, then small production, small scale production. Then we put it all upside down, started from new because we didn't achieve our goals quite in the right way, and did all the toolings again, reworked the process, really invested a lot of time and money to be able to make this kind of stick now. And this is how it gets out of the mold. I cannot show the technology, of course. And it's if you want to come to Würzburg, I'll be happy to show it to you, how we produce them. It's quite an amazing process. We learned a lot on the way. Now we can make sticks at roughly half the cost of an Arcus stick, and we have a chance to make significantly larger numbers to satisfy the demand that is growing and growing and growing. Situation with Pernambuco is that since May last year, nothing is coming out of Brazil, and we don't have any clue if that'll ever going to change. So the stock of Pernambuco, of legal Pernambuco, is going down and down and down. So, besides the sound and the playability, by the way, there's another issue with some of these lower end carbon fiber bows. They are not necessarily very reliable. Some of them are never really straight. This one isn't. Some of them just simply break at any given moment. And of course, they don't come with any warranty. So some of these bows are made so badly that even rehairing is not really an option, because the motif is cut so badly, so that rehairing a bow is more expensive than actually making them. That's not really sustainable. And do we really want throwaway bows? Well, me not. Anyways, so durability is, of course, a durability warranty. I mean, we give 30-year warranties on an Arcus stick and 15 on a Müsing bow, but we could easily give 300 years of warranty anyways. So what we do, we have a resin injection process with these fibers so we can manufacture them. But the next question is, what is the intention of the design? So only because we know a process does not define the design of the product and its function. And here comes a very interesting question in play. The Arcus bows were designed for maximizing power, articulation, expression, so you can really work out all the fine details. So for a professional player or for a highly skilled amateur player, semi-professionals, whatever, of course they'll want that. But what about students? What about amateur players? Is that maybe asking a little too much of their technique and of their playing? If you play like 2, 3, 4 hours in a week, maybe your focus would be on a very different point, and that is natural playing, ease of playing, a bow that supports you in your practicing and in your performance, maybe in a community orchestra, maybe playing a little chamber music, maybe playing at home. And here starts the design process of how is this stick shaped and curved to deliver an easy playing. And believe it or not, it is not about good and bad, but it is about a more, let's say, performance-oriented design or a player-oriented design. And for the Müsing bows, of course, that was easy. We have these performance-oriented bows which are designed for professional use. So why not focus on designing the bow so that it plays as easy as any possible? And to tell you what, it works. When I play sheet music that I haven't practiced much, and I play the piece with a Müsing bow or played with an Arcus, the result with the Müsing is much better. Even if my bowing is not perfect, if my intonation is not perfect, it's much more pleasing. It's much more easy. And you can enjoy your playing without practicing a piece to death. With the Arcus, I really have to practice, and I must be very careful with my intonation and everything, and my fingerings and bowings. I need to work it all out. Otherwise, it's no fun, because the Arcus bows shows everything, like under a microscope. The Müsing bow is much more comfortable. It makes it much more enjoyable without investing too much time, which I, in my professional life, I just don't have the time sometimes, and I want to play this new piece. So I tend to grab my Müsing bow whenever I'm just, playing a little bit, this or that. But if I want to work out a piece, bring it to perfection, sure, I'll get my Arcus bow, no doubt about that. So here you have it. And then, of course, developing a violin bow is not where it ends. Of course, we had to make it a full range. And as you know, I just don't, make a bow that looks like a viola bow, but design it specifically so that it will work perfectly for the vast majority of instruments and players. That's the goal and the target for all Müsing bows. And of course, the same is true for the cello bows. To come up with a design that works for most players and for the most instruments. And and the last thing, of course, that we did, and it was really difficult, I have to admit, is making our bass bows. These babies, they've cost us some nerves, I'll tell you. The stick is very curved, it's pretty big. Look at this massive head. We've had a huge number of problems getting that process clean. with the result that the Müsing bass bows are a match for even really fine and expensive wooden bows. You wouldn't believe it until you play them. They came out really beautiful. And they're now produced still in small numbers, but we're cranking it up, and they get nicer with every month, every year that we manufacture them. And they're actually looking quite beautiful now. And I tell you, it's been a long journey. How many years? From 2008, what did I say, 5 years or something? All right, okay. No, it's 2008 to 2023. 2023, that's 15 years. Holy ghost, 15 years. And don't ask me how much money we invested in all that. So, here you have it. A new generation of bows that is changing the game, and which are meant to be the solution for a large part of the market, which is the average player, the student, the amateur. Oh, by the way, it's also a perfect backup bow or travel bow for professional musicians, of course. It does sound, oh, I forgot to say that. Really, it does sound like a Pernambuco bow. So this thing that I mentioned earlier, the 0.5% damping, resembling good quality Pernambuco, is exactly what it does. And when you play a Müsing C3, C4, and compare that to a wood bow that costs maybe 5 times that money, you will hear no difference. I mean, you can still try to force that, but if you play both bows with the same effort, you get the same beautiful sound out of your instrument. There's no difference. So there you have it, a new generation of bows that are hopefully providing a solution for many musicians in the future. And we're very proud on our team. It's been a huge team effort with our research and development team, with our workshop team. We built machineries, we built toolings, a lot of suppliers got involved, and they've all did their best to make a product that is sustainable, is comfortable, that is safe, and that can make quite a difference in your playing, and hopefully have a good influence in your musical life. Thanks for now. See you soon. Bye.